Hi friends, welcome back to the Chronic Chronicles. I'm your host, Lexy and today's episode is going to be a very honest episode and a little bit vulnerable. We're talking about something I know a lot of us in the chronic illness and disability community struggle with, but don't always say out loud, and that's loneliness. Not just like I've been stuck at home for a few days, I'm feeling lonely type of loneliness, but the kind of like really deep, confusing, identity-shaking isolation that comes with when your body changes and your friendships, your community, and your access to the world shift with it. So if you've ever canceled plans and felt ashamed, if you've ever sat in a room full of people and still felt really alone, or if you've ever felt like the world just wasn't built for you, this episode is for you, so stick around. But before we get into the meat of the episode, I do want to do like a little weekly report with you. We haven't done a weekly report in a long time, so I thought that would be fun. So just to remind myself, I need to look up what the weekly report stands for. So, okay, weekly report. R stands for reading. I'm actually reading like 3 different books right now, which I don't normally do. I like to just read one book at a time and like finish it. But in particular, the Game of Thrones series. Let's look at which one I'm actually reading right now. The Game of Thrones series I have been like on and off with for the last couple of months. I'm currently reading Queen of Shadows and I'm on chapter 38 and I'm starting to like get back into it, but I've been on Queen of Shadows for a couple of months, and I think it's because this is the first time I've ever tried reading it on my Kindle. It's a huge book. And normally I listen to them on Audible, so I went back to listening to it on Audible, and I've actually really been enjoying listening to it on my like jogs and walks. So definitely getting back into it in that sense, but some people say that that's not technically reading, which I still think it is because I'm consuming a book. But anyways, I have been like back and forth with that series, but I really do love Sarah J. Maas and I love like all of her books, and I've read like all of the seasons. I've read series. I've read like all of her series, like ACOTAR and Crescent City, and I don't know if there's another one. I don't even know which. I use Goodreads to keep up with like the books that I'm reading. And full transparency, I've been pretty bad with books this year. Let's look at my Goodreads. Come on. Okay. Yeah. In 2024, I read 14 books, and so far in 2025, I have read 2. Whoops. And my goal is 15. So there's that. But Queen of Shadows, I don't know. This is book number 4 in the series. So, there you go. But anyways, so I'm reading that, and I'm also reading, that's my like Audible book that I'm listening to, and then like physically reading, I'm reading Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. So, if you guys didn't know, in the Discord channel, well also if you are just tuning in for the first time or you haven't heard me talk about it recently, we do have a Discord channel for the community that technically I inherited, but it's for the podcast, but it has a whole bunch of like channels in the server. If you're watching on YouTube, you can kind of see on my phone, it has a whole bunch of different server channels in the server. I am still not very familiar with Discord. I wasn't prior to like taking this over. So I didn't actually create really any of this outside of the book club channel in the Discord. But I really do love it. I think that it's really cool for the community. There's over 600 people in it for you to hang out with, chat with, conversate, not feel so alone, since this episode is literally about loneliness in the community. I think it's really cool. There's like things for like accomplishments, pets, randoms, small businesses, service animals, and then like pretty much every condition you can think of, there's a channel for it. And then there's like mental health, rants, all that stuff. And then I created this book club chat. So in the book club for this month, we're reading Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry, and then we're going to meet and have a video discussion about the book. And even if you can't come to the video discussion or anything like that, or you don't want to, then you can like communicate about the book in the book club chat, which has been really fun. So I'm really liking that book. And then the other book that I'm reading, well, I guess I have two more. Oh my God. Okay. Art of Persuasion, which I've been reading for like 2 months. I kind of just read it when I'm like, okay, I want like kind of educational, like self-helpy type book. Then I'll read that for a little bit. It's a pretty small book, but it's taken me a while to get through it because I just haven't really been in the reading mindset. But I do really like that. And then the last book I've been reading is the Bible, which I've talked about on one of the other episodes, that I'm literally reading the Bible as literature just to get the like history, if you will, of it, and just to read it as a book, because I don't know, I think it would be interesting to say that I've like read the Bible all the way through. Also, as like a mid to late 20s girl, I just feel like I want to form my own opinions about all of that stuff, and I feel like this is a good time in life to just like read it and start to form my own opinions on religion, and like when I have kids someday, like what I want to do with religion and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm also doing that. I am reading I can't remember which, it's like, I don't know, it's like here, let me grab it. It's this like The Great Adventure. It has like pages in it to mark off for you to read it like in 365 days. So it's the official 365-day reading plan for the Bible in a year. So that is like the Bible that I'm reading. So then I really like it for like my academic validation brain. They have like literally in here little tick marks that you can make for like day 1, day 2, and like what you're supposed to read for that. So I really like that. I feel like that actually, the Bible is like not an easy thing to read. It's quite dense, so having it broken down and like check offable, that's not a word, but you know what I mean. I think that helps me actually read it. So those are the 4 books that I'm reading right now. E is for eating. I mean, Uncrustables are kind of my go-to as of recent, which is definitely not anti-inflammatory, and you could probably make an Uncrustable at home, like by yourself. You don't have to buy them, but I discovered Uncrustables like last year. I mean, I obviously knew that they existed, but I just had never had one, and I kind of thought it was gross. I'm like, why do I want like a frozen peanut butter and jelly, like a cold? I actually love like a toasted peanut butter and jelly, or I mean, I still do, but like prior to this, I would go for like a toasted peanut butter and jelly, and I love an Uncrustable. I love an Uncrustable, and I went through like an Uncrustable phase last year. Didn't really buy them much, and then all of a sudden this past month I've been buying and going through Uncrustables like crazy. I think it's because I've been trying to do like intuitive eating, and my eating habits are just really weird and wacky because of like PCOS and all that stuff. So an Uncrustable is a really easy thing for me to just like grab and go if I'm like starving. Because something about my like metabolism and eating from PCOS is that I will not be hungry at all for like majority of the day, and then all of a sudden I feel ravenous, like I'm gonna throw up, like I'm having blood sugar drops, I'm assuming, and that's what, like my doctor and I have been going back and forth about that for a long time. She wants me to do a continuous monitor, CGM, continuous glucose monitor. And I agree that that would probably be really insightful, but I am terrified of needles, and I like already have to get needles a lot as a chronically ill person. So I'm like, why do I want to like subject myself to more needles when it like gives me anxiety and blah, blah, blah. So honestly, I probably will give in and do the CGM, considering that it is good. Like now my doctor is like, we don't have an excuse not to do it because your insurance approved you to have it covered because I have insulin resistance. So anyways, that's a whole nother thing. Report, R-E-P. P is for playing golf. I feel like I've said that every single time on the weekly report all summer, but I am getting into golf. That was so cringy. If you just watched that on YouTube, I'm so sorry, but oh my God. I'm getting into golf and I'm really liking it, and I'm also really liking it as like a time to hang out with my boyfriend more because he's really, really into golf. And I have found a couple of like beginner golf girlies as well, and that has been really fun to like go out and play with girls or go to the driving range. We have a really nice driving range around us where you can get like food and drinks and stuff, and there's like mountains in the background. That's like my favorite Friday night activity, so I've really been loving that. O is for obsessing. I am obsessing over my new espresso machine, like 100% in love with that. I'm so happy that I bought it. It was an investment for sure. Okay, my boyfriend hates when I say that. He hates when I say investment when it's not actually an investment, but I think, does that count there? Like, is that I'm gonna say it's still an investment because I'm saving money from going to coffee shops, right? Like, I've barely been to coffee shops in the last month because I actually am obsessed with my espresso machine and like making new syrups and getting, the only times I've been to coffee shops in the past month, literally the only times, is to get beans for my espresso machine because I like to get them from, I'm kind of like exploring new coffee shops where they like roast their own beans and trying different types of beans and figuring out which ones I like. So obsessing with that, love it. Okay, REPOR, recommending a daily walk. That's so basic, but a daily walk, and maybe not even a daily walk, but like 3 times a week walk. Doesn't have to be long, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just get outside and like feel the sun on you while we still have it and move your body, even if you're walking at a snail's pace. You should do that. Report, treating. I'm treating myself to salt and straw ice cream tonight. I'm currently recording this podcast at 6:29 p.m. and my boyfriend is out of town this weekend, and I will be door dashing salt and straw salted malted cookie dough because I'm obsessed with it and I'm so excited to eat that. So I'm so excited. Okay, let's get into the meat of this week's episode. So let's start with friendship, because this is where the loneliness really hit me after I got sick, which I put air quotes around that, by the way, for anyone that's not watching the YouTube version. I don't like to say when I got sick, because in reality, I've had endometriosis forever. And there wasn't like a night and day shift to when I actually got sick. It was just a night and day shift to when I got diagnosed. And when I started like recognizing that like my chronic illness was real and was chronic and wasn't going away. And I feel like that's when the loneliness really started to hit me, was when I started like telling people in my life that I had endometriosis, and then had to like explain what it was over and over and over again because people didn't know what it was. And even when I would explain it, they didn't understand what that meant or like what the pain was in my life. There's this weird space that opens up when you become chronically ill. Suddenly, you're not the person who says yes to everything anymore. You're the one who might cancel, the one that needs accommodations, the one that's always tired or in pain or just not as spontaneous. And slowly, these friendships start to shift. And I remember canceling plans 3 times in a row with somebody that I really loved and respected and wanted to hang out with. And instead of asking if I was okay, they just stopped reaching out, which I can understand it from both sides, but it really just made me feel like my illness was ruining my life, and it made me feel invisible. And that kind of loss, it's not loud, it's quiet, but it still stings really, really bad. And then comes the guilt that you can't show up the way that you want to, or guilt that your symptoms are just inconvenient, and that people think that you're making excuses, and that you're flaky, and that you don't show up to things, and you start ghosting people, not because you don't care, but because it takes a lot of energy that you just don't have. And again, hierarchy of needs. Well, I say again, but because I said it in a previous episode, but hierarchy of needs, you have to meet your basic needs before you can meet other needs. So for me and other people that are chronically ill, you have to meet the needs that keep you alive before you text people back. And even texting someone back feels like a whole task when you're in a flare. And before you know it, you're lonely. You're alone. And you're ashamed of being lonely. And it sucks. And you don't feel like the same person that you were before being chronically ill. There was this one birthday that I spent completely alone. It was actually my 22nd birthday. And I mean, not completely alone. I did have my partner with me for bits and pieces of it. But it wasn't, birthdays are really important to me. I love birthdays. I love celebrating birthdays. I actually do a whole birth month. October is my birth month and I celebrate it. And I love birthdays. And I didn't spend this birthday mostly alone because I didn't have friends, but it was really because I didn't have the energy to host or to go out or really to even like respond to people. And I cried that night, not because I was alone, but because I felt like I was a burden for even wanting company, and even because I was in a flare, because I was in a bunch of pain, and it felt so isolating, and I felt like I was doing it to myself because I'm the one that didn't like create a birthday extravaganza for myself that day because I was in a flare and didn't feel good. And it wasn't other people. It wasn't because of other people's lack of want or trying or anything like that. It was because I didn't feel good and it sucked. And I felt like I was isolating myself from the people that I loved. But in reality, I was just in a lot of pain. We're taught that being a good friend means always being available, always showing up, always giving a shit ton of energy, really. But when you live in a body that can't do those things, you start believing that maybe you aren't a good friend. And maybe you're not fun to be around. Maybe you don't deserve to be going to all these things where everybody is so high energy, which you used to be at one point, and so extroverted and happy and not in an ounce of pain, which half of the time you force yourself to go to even when you are in pain because you want to be there, but everyone else is just like so high frequency and you're over here in pain and you're tired and you don't have the energy, and then you start feeling bad because you don't have the energy. And I think it really roots back to you really just start believing that you're not a good friend anymore, but really that's the internalized ableism talking. You can be a good friend and also need a lot of rest. You can be reliable and also need flexibility. And I wholeheartedly believe that I am that. I think that I am a very reliable person that also needs flexibility at times. And I do try my best to show up to the plans that I make, but there will be times where I have to get flexibility. So here are a couple things that helped me navigate the messiness of friendship with chronic illness. First of all, I stopped chasing people who made me feel guilty for things that I couldn't control. And I'm not gonna lie to you, that hurts. Like, there are very long friendships that I have either ended, for one, or just taken a very big step back from, and those friendship dynamics have heavily changed because I didn't want to be around people that made me feel guilty for things that I can't control, like pain flares, like endometriosis flares, and that kind of stuff. Two, I started opening up to people about why I cancel and what I'm actually dealing with, and two things happened with this. One, the people that are supposed to be your friends and that care will appreciate you opening up to them about what's going on and understand, and it will give them a new light and a new understanding of like why you are acting the way that you're acting. And two, the second thing that happened is the people that I really shouldn't have in my life and don't care that much and have superficial friendships left my life. And that's fine. That's okay. And three, I found really incredible friendships online in this community, in the Chronic Chronicles podcast community, through the podcast, through the chronic illness community, and people who get it without explanation needed. And I'm not saying all of your friends have to be chronically ill, because that is certainly not my dynamic at all. I do have friends that are chronically ill through this community, but I also have friends that are not chronically ill and are completely fine, able-bodied people that are also just understanding and good people. And I feel like the most important thing I learned that having fewer friends is not a failure, and that depth matters more than quantity, and that truly quality matters more than quantity. And it is okay to have a couple of friends, a couple of really good friends, and be happy with that. And that was something that was hard for me to learn as well. I growing up was always the type of person that had a lot of friends. I moved around a lot. I think that I'm pretty good at making friends and making connections with people and like communicating with people, mostly because I grew up moving around so much. Like I went to 5 different high schools, more schools total than that, but like 5 different high schools. I have lived in, I think it's 7 different states, maybe 8. I can't remember exactly, but 7 or 8 different states. Like I have met a lot of people in my life, and there have been times in my life where I've had a shit ton of friends, and I thought that meant that I was a really good friend because I had so many friends. But in reality, I think that the way that I characterize friendship is different now. Like they're different. I have a couple of really good friends nowadays, and I have a lot of acquaintances, and I have a lot of people in my life that I know and that I am friendly to and would say hi to on the street or at the grocery store. But maybe I just classify friendships differently nowadays. And I just discovered that like quality is really more important than quantity. So let's zoom out a little, because loneliness isn't just about people, it's also about access. And the truth is that the world is not designed for bodies like ours. And when the world isn't accessible, it becomes alienating. So let's go through a regular day. The event you're invited to is upstairs. There's no elevator. The chairs at the restaurant are hard plastic and your joints are aching before the food even arrives. Or you walk into the doctor's office and they say, but you're so young to be on that medication. And every single one of those chips away at your sense of safety and your sense of belonging. And before you leave the house, you think, how long will I be walking today? Is there a bathroom nearby? Do I need to bring a heating patch? What's the lighting like? Will I get a migraine? Do I need to bring Tylenol or ibuprofen? And it's a constant calculation. It's exhausting. And most of the time, no one even notices. No one. I once turned down a panel opportunity because the venue had no seating options, and I was scared that I would pass out if I was standing up that long. I didn't even ask if they would accommodate me. I just assumed the answer was no. I'm just conditioned to shrink myself into this box. So these are some phrases that internalized ableism sounds like I'm not sick enough to ask for that, or they'll think I'm lazy if I take the elevator. They'll look at me and think, oh, why isn't she taking the stairs for 1 floor? Or I don't want to be difficult. Those are all things that have gone through my head so many times. I had to learn that asking for access is not selfish. It's not a burden. It's not something that people are going to be annoyed about. It's really survival. It's energy. It's saving energy for things that matter. Taking the elevator instead of taking the stairs for 1 floor is saving yourself needed energy that you don't need to waste on doing that. So some things that have helped me push back are using tools that support me. I know a lot of us in the chronic illness space tend to save pain relieving tools until it's too much, or until you're worthy of using, these are all air quotes by the way, until you're worthy of using your tools because you're in that much pain. And I have really challenged myself to break out of that mindset and use the tools that support me, like my spicy heat patches, mobility aids, backup medications, using the Zofran when I need it because I need it, and speaking up even when it's awkward, because you deserve accessibility. We deserve accessibility, and asking for it is what you need to do, even if it's awkward. Connecting with chronically ill creators or disabled creators and advocates online who remind me that it's okay to take up space and that we are alive on this floating rock together. Like, we are all allowed to take up space, and making peace with not doing things the way that I used to. we don't owe anyone normal, we owe ourselves support. And I feel like all of these reframes are really, really important. And these are all things that I have really, really worked on in the last year, if not more, but really, really in the last year. All of these things that are kind of like little like quotes, like we don't owe anyone normal, we owe ourselves support. These are all things that I've put on like sticky notes and literally put up on my mirror to remind myself that it's okay and that we deserve accessibility, accommodations, to take up space. We deserve to be our authentic selves in the world. And I think we deserve to be ourselves in this world, and we deserve equality. If this episode stirred something in you, I want you to know that you're not alone. Not in your flaking, which it's not flaking, not in your grief, not in your frustration, and none of those things are you alone. I am at the very least going through it with you, but I can guarantee you that there are hundreds, if not thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of other people feeling the exact same way. And you're allowed to need things. You're allowed to cancel. You're allowed to ask for help. The world might not be built for us, but we're building new spaces anyway. Community, understanding, advocacy. And I'm so glad that you're here with me while we do this. If this episode has resonated with you, please share it with someone else who needs to feel seen right now, and tag at Chronic Chronicles Pod on Instagram or send me a DM. I love hearing your stories. I love talking with you. And make sure that you subscribe to the podcast, and if you want to give us a rating, review, that really, really helps us reach more people in the community that need to hear these things. And as always, thank you so much for being a part of this space. I will see you next week.